So, hello everyone, and welcome to Flower Power Live. Today is December 27th, 2021. This is going to be the last Flower Power of 2021. And today I want to begin a series of shows. I kind of liked my spice series, so I'm going to begin a series of shows talking more about sort of trees and evergreens and some of the other plants that we have more access to and we tend to connect with a little bit more during the winter months. Even though the solstice has passed, we still have a lot of darkness to go through before we get to spring. And so, just for the next few weeks, I wanted to share a few of those types of plants with you. And my name is Allison from The Well Cultivated Life, and I'm an ecologist, an educator, and something else. What else do I say? Oh, an herbalist. So, thank you so much for joining me here tonight. I love sharing all of this information with you. So, tonight's plant is juniper. And juniper, I was inspired to choose juniper in part because of this really cool new book that I got. I got this a few months ago and I haven't really done anything. I hadn't really looked at it or anything with it. And so I was thinking, oh, maybe juniper. And then I realized, oh, that's like a Native American important species, important plant. And so I pulled out this book, which is really cool. It's called Iwigara, The Kinship of Plants and People by Enrique Salmon. And he is, or it might be Salmon, American Indian Ethnobotanical Traditions and Science. So he has some really cool combination of stories and information about the uses in sort of North America overall. So I'm looking forward to sharing some more things from this book in the future. Now, junipers are part of the cypress family, and that's the Cupressaceae, which includes western red cedar and white cedar and all of the redwoods trees as well. And junipers have a lot of wild species all across North America. And they also have been developed a lot for horticultural use. There's a lot of the coloration of junipers, like the extra blue ones and so on, have been developed over time for that. So the most commonly used juniper for like medicinal and for harvesting the berries, the juniper berries that we'll hear a lot about in a little bit, is called Juniper communis, like common juniper. And that grows across most of North America and a lot of Europe as well. And in the desert Southwest, there are a few other species that are commonly used: the one seed juniper, the Utah juniper, and alligator junipers. And these are more like almost like a small tree. They can get up to like 20 or 25 feet tall. And so, even though it grows across the world, these junipers are really important in the Native American and indigenous traditions, and they're very respected and revered for their resilience and their ability to survive in basically a desert-like conditions. And they grow a lot in the more high deserts where it's cold and dry. So there was a lovely quote in the book that said, he was speaking with a Pueblo elder who said, Indians are like the juniper tree. Our roots are deep and strong. When the next big wind comes across the land, we will still be standing. And I think this says a lot for the resilience of the Native Americans in this country as well, and all that they have had to go through. Now, the junipers, again, you might think of them really as a landscape plant, which they are, but they are planted a lot in places where they need like erosion control, or a place where you're not going to be able to have any kind of be able to maintain or really water, because they are so resilient and they are so drought resistant. This is one of the main things about them. And so a lot of times they even put on the side of highways. That's an ideal kind of use for that type of plants. But they're also really important in the wild the berries, which are actually the female cones of the plant, they are eaten by a lot of wildlife, like small mammals and birds. And they also can serve, because they're kind of thick growing, they can really serve as a good shelter for these animals as well. Now, the berries, which I have some here, these are the little berries, which are basically like a hard, like they're not a berry, they're like a hard berry top, like it would be really hard to crush or cut them. They take at least 2 and sometimes 3 years to ripen after they've been set. And so, like, that's a long time to wait. And they only have like between 1 and 3 seeds inside each berry. But luckily, junipers, the plant itself, is relatively prolific, so it's going to be growing well and setting a lot of these berries, these seeds, so that it is going to be available. Now, throughout history, these berries have been used for culinary, medicinal, and ritualistic purposes. And probably the most well-known to most people is its use as in gin, in flavoring gin. So gin and this whole distilleries developed in the 17th century by the Dutch, and became very popular. And it got to the point where people across Europe would go out and start harvesting these juniper berries in order to be able to sell, make a little extra money, sell them, and ship them off to the Netherlands, to the gin distilleries over there. And the word gin comes from juniper. Original name was Jenever, like Jenever. And so that's where we get the word gin from. Now, not only did these berries flavor gin, they also were used in flavoring all different kinds of beverages as well, including beers and whiskeys and whatever they felt like throwing it into, and also used in flavoring foods, especially meats. A lot of times the flavor was used, the berry was used for that. So they're high in vitamin C and these other types of flavonoids. So I use them whenever I'm making a tea, if I'm not feeling so good and I want a little extra boost for, as you know, to kind of ward off whatever might be coming on. I'll just throw some of that into my tea. And according to Stephen Buhner's book called Herbal Antibiotics, he says that evergreens in general are one of the overlooked attributes of the evergreens is their vitamin C content. And you saw, I can't remember when, I guess it was my solstice show last week. I was talking about the vitamin C in white pine. So it's overlooked for their vitamin C content. All animals except for the higher primates synthesize their own vitamin C. I did not know that. We are one of the only animals that needs to get our vitamin C from outside of our bodies. The new spring growth of evergreens has traditionally been used in the human diet in many different cultures as a source of vitamin C. So in the spring, that's the most richest in vitamin C. And if you've gone through a long winter and you need a little extra vitamin C dose, you can go out and harvest some evergreens in the springtime. Now, medicinally, the berries are used in several different kinds of ways. They, this sort of antimicrobial antibiotic properties makes them effective mostly for their urinary tract infections. So they have to support the kidneys and urinary tract. And according to Matthew Wood, really the juniper is used for kidneys in sort of like a suppressed kind of conditions where things aren't really moving that well. There's a buildup of fluids, more like a diuretic type of a use. And hold on, I lost my page right here. There we go. Where the kidneys are more congested, and not like a hot situation, more of a like a suppressed and congested kidney situation. And so this can also be useful for PMS, because a lot of this kind of bloating and water retention, things aren't moving out properly, have a similar type of characteristic for that. Now, one of the great things about juniper berries is they can be made into an essential oil, which has several different uses as well. And the first is using it diluted, emphasize diluted, okay? Diluting the essential oil in a carrier oil. It can be used it was sort of sometimes used, depending on the person, for acne. And so it can just be put directly on the skin, and that antimicrobial properties will help to kind of clear out, because that's a lot of what causes acne, is a lot of just kind of the bacteria building up within the pores of the skin. So there's always a potential for irritation. And so you always want to test, especially when you're using something concentrated like an essential oil, make sure you dilute it and try it on the skin as well. Now, it can also be put into a steam for upper respiratory illnesses, anything like that. If you're doing eucalyptus, maybe throw in some juniper berry oil as well. Now, the scent of juniper is very well known and important, and this was one of the things about juniper that was used in a more ritualistic type of a way. And the scent is said to cleanse and purify the area from not only germs, but also from evil spirits, and clearing areas of witchcraft and so on. And so it has been used in like as a smudge, and for they even burned it during the plague. And then even later on in some more hospitals or medical situations, they would burn the juniper and rosemary together to help sort of ward off the germs and the other evil spirits is what it was used for. And so the smudge stick is made by taking the fresh juniper when it's fresh, roping it up. Do not try to do this once it's dried, because it gets very, very brittle. Okay. So today we can use the essential oil instead of using the smudge stick, although some people really like the ritualistic part of the smudge stick. And so one of the things that it helps with more, mentally, is that it's very calming and can help you clear out a lot of negative thoughts out of your mind and helping to relax. And so the kind of combination of this antimicrobial with this ability to relax and let go of negative thoughts really can help speed your healing along. It especially helps with anxiety and other types of trauma clearing. And now that is similar to, in some ways, the flower essence for juniper. And so I have this Ocotillo Botanical writes, Juniper's vibrational medicine is all about deep wisdom, about intrinsic knowing and intuition. She helps us to see through the veil into our own innate abilities, to perceive all things, and to reconnect our spiritual and physical selves with the earth and cosmos. She is connected to our ancestral, she helps us work through our ancestral trauma and connect to our past and current life ancestry. And then Primrose Apothecary says that juniper calms the heart and allows the body to relax. This is similar to the essential oil, giving the mind clarity and aligning our discernment, giving us a clear understanding and a positive perception. So that sounds good to me. Is there ever a flower essence that doesn't sound good, right? So today I didn't have a card from one of my usual decks, but I'm very excited because I got a new deck, and it's by Juliet, Diaz, and Lorriane Anderson, and it's called the Earthcraft Oracle. And it just has these beautiful artwork, as you can see here from this front here. The art is, what does it say? Danielle Boodoo-Fortune. And so I decided to draw a card from there instead. And the card that I drew is called Drought. And I thought that was quite an appropriate card for Juniper because we just talked about how Juniper is resilient, can withstand drought, can live in these harsher conditions. And so the meaning of the drought card is basically saying that what happens is when we're going through a hardship, we often begin to, and it keeps going, we often begin to feel that it's never going to end. We are in a drought. There is no solution. We are never going to get out of this. And so we are like when the land is in a drought, it seems like it's never going to rain again, but there is hope. And this is what it says in the book. It says, even in the harshness of the desert, you can find water buried beneath dry riverbeds or stored inside of a cactus. You may have to dig a little deeper in search in unexpected places, but don't give up hope and don't be afraid to ask for help, especially from Mother Earth. There is still time to turn your situation around. So these cards are really cool because they basically, each card has a message about sort of the relationship between humans and the earth that we live on. So I may be using some more of these in the future. They're quite beautiful. So like many of the evergreens that we have used throughout history, Juniper is yet another one of these plants that provides so many different things to us. It provides food, it provides medicine, it clears evil spirits, and it flavors our other type of spirits that we like to drink, right? And so I'm always amazed by these types of plants that are so versatile in so many different things that we can get from one plant. And so the juniper, which can survive in these and a lot of different kinds of climates, not just in the desert, but it can survive across a lot of different places. It's very adaptable. It has a lot of wisdom. And as the quote from Enrique Salmon was saying, it has really deep roots. And so we can use this as a metaphor for the deep roots that we have, our deep wisdom that we have, that we can tap down into in these times when we think the drought is never going to end, right? And so in many cultures, this just made me think of how in many cultures, it is used for protection from both illness and spirits. And I started to think, well, are these two things mutually exclusive? And meaning that a lot of times when these evil spirits come into our mind, these negative thoughts that constantly haunt us, that can have a real effect on feeling better, seeing a solution, understanding the answer, trusting ourselves, and so on. So if we can use a plant that can help us feel like, oh, we can banish these negative thoughts, like they were talking about with the, I was talking about with the essential oil that can help kind of like relax the mind and get rid of a lot of these negative thoughts. That opens a pathway to better healing. So when we have, it gives us more belief in our healing abilities. So we know that the drought will end eventually. Just have to have patience, go deep on the roots, and tap into the wisdom of your body if you are in need of getting through a difficult time. So that is our message from Juniper tonight. Thank you so much for joining me here on Flower Power Live. And I will see you next week for our New Year's show. And last week I talked a little bit about our plant for 2022, hemlock. And I decided that I'm going to go into a little bit more detail on hemlock on this first day of the year, first show of the year, next week. So I look forward to seeing you then. And until then, have a wonderful week. Take care, everybody. Bye-bye.